The ocean had always been a mystery to Rayhan. He grew up by the sea, where the air always smelled of salt and the wind carried whispers from beyond the horizon. His father was a fisherman, his grandfather too. The rhythm of the waves was his lullaby. The taste of salt on his lips was as familiar as breath itself. But after 42 years of fishing these same waters off the coast of Balabac, Rayhan had begun to notice things changing. The tides came earlier, the fish disappeared sooner, and the silence beneath the waves felt heavier, almost angry. Still, he sailed every morning before dawn, the hum of his small boat's motor echoing through the gray fog. The ocean was his life, and his only way to survive. The day of the storm began on a day when the sea refused to stay calm. A storm had rolled in from the east, not strong enough to keep the boats docked, but heavy enough to make even the most seasoned fishermen uneasy. The sky was an endless bruise of gray and violet, and lightning flickered behind the clouds like distant flashes of a dying world. Rayhan almost stayed home. Almost. But the money was tight, and the catch had been poor all week. He told himself the same lie he always did. One more trip, one more net of fish, and things will get better. He set out before dawn. The sea greeted him with waves that slapped against the hull, sharp and cold. The radio crackled with weather warnings he ignored. He cast his nets into the dark water and waited. Hours passed. The rain eased, and then the world went silent. No gulls, no wind, not even the faint creak of the ropes. Rayhan frowned. He felt something, a pulse beneath the boat, deep and slow, like the heartbeat of something enormous moving far below. Then his net jerked, hard. At first he thought he'd snagged on coral, but then the net began to move. The thing in the net, Rayhan, gripped the winch handle and pulled. It was heavy, too heavy. The line strained. The water frothed. For a moment he thought the net might tear, but then something broke the surface. Long, silver and shimmering like a ribbon of living mercury. At first glance, it looked like a serpent. But as he hauled it closer, he realized it was a fish, longer than his boat, maybe 12, 15 meters long. It had a bright red fin that ran from its head to its tail like a banner of blood. Its eyes were huge, black, and lifeless. It was beautiful and horrifying, an oarfish. He'd heard stories about them. The messengers of the deep. The fish that surfaced before earthquakes. Some said they were omens, that when they appeared, the sea was trying to warn humanity of something coming. Rayhan had always laughed at that, but now, staring at this thing in his net, he didn't feel like laughing. The fish's mouth opened and closed slowly as if trying to speak. Its gills fluttered weakly. It was dying. Rayhan didn't know what to do. He had never caught anything like this. It was worth nothing in the market. Too strange, too alien. But it felt wrong to just throw it back. So he tied the net, secured it to the side of the boat, and started the motor. He would bring it ashore. Maybe someone would know what to do with it. That was his first mistake. The silence that followed. The wind had died completely. The waves were gone. The sea around his boat looked like glass, perfectly still, perfectly flat, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Rayhan wiped his brow and looked over the edge. The oarfish twitched once. Then its mouth opened wider than before, and a stream of thick black fluid spilled into the water. Rayhan stepped back, startled. The liquid spread quickly, turning the sea around the boat into a dark stain. The smell hit him next, metallic, sour, like something rotting deep inside a machine. His head began to ache. The radio started hissing with static. He tried to call for help, but all he heard was his own voice echoing back in distortion, like someone else was repeating his words half a second too late. He turned off the radio. The headache grew stronger. By the time the sun sank, the sea was completely dark. No stars, no horizon, just endless black water and the faint sound of something moving beneath him. Rayhan couldn't bring himself to touch the oarfish again. He sat in his small cabin, clutching his lantern, watching the gentle sway of the boat. That was when he heard the first sound, a deep groan, distant but growing louder, like the earth itself was bending. The lantern flickered. The boat trembled. Rayhan looked overboard and saw bubbles rising, massive, slow, and far too many to come from a single fish. Then the oarfish's body shifted, though it had been dead for hours. Its eye rolled upward, its gills pulsing once more. The skin along its flank rippled, like something was crawling beneath it. Rayhan stumbled back, his pulse pounding in his throat. And then, as suddenly as it began, the movement stopped. The ocean went still again. He barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that black liquid spreading, swallowing the light. He reached the shore just after dawn. The fishermen waiting by the dock ran to see what he'd brought. But when they saw the oarfish, their faces drained of color. One old man whispered, "You shouldn't have brought it here." Rayhan tried to laugh it off. "It's just a fish," but no one laughed with him. By noon, word had spread through the village. People came from nearby towns to see it. Scientists were called. A reporter took pictures. Everyone wanted to touch it, take a piece of it, pose beside it, until the smell became too much. Within hours, seagulls stopped flying overhead. The waves lapped weakly, as if the ocean itself didn't want to come closer. That night, the dogs howled for hours. The warnings, the next day, Rayhan began to feel ill. His skin itched, his vision blurred, and when he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of red light, like lightning underwater. He thought it was exhaustion. Or maybe guilt. He tried to stay busy, fixing his nets, cleaning his boat. But as he scrubbed the deck, he noticed small black spots spreading across the wood where the oarfish had lain. He poured salt water over them, but they didn't fade. Instead, they moved, slowly, like oil seeking cracks. He told himself it was just rot, just dirt. But when he returned the next morning, the stains had spread into the shape of something long and sinuous, like a shadow burned into the wood. That night, the first earthquake hit. It was mild, a tremor, the kind that rattled windows and made dishes clink. But the villagers were terrified. Some swore they saw lights under the sea just before the ground shook, pale blue flashes far offshore where Rayhan had caught the oarfish. 2 nights later, another tremor struck, stronger this time. Rayhan woke to the sound of crashing glass. The power went out. When he looked outside, he saw the shoreline glowing, faintly, eerily, as if the sand itself were alive. And in that glow, far out at sea, something moved, a long shape, twisting just beneath the surface. Not one oarfish, many, hundreds. Rayhan stumbled backward, heart hammering. He ran to his boat, but stopped at the dock. The black stains had spread across the deck completely, glistening in the moonlight. Then he saw it. The surface of the water was rippling, though there was no wind. And from the darkness below, a faint humming sound began, low, deep, and rhythmic, like chanting from beneath the earth. The scientists arrived the next morning. They said the oarfish were surfacing all along the coast. They called it a biological response to tectonic movement. But Rayhan knew better. The fish weren't just dying. They were fleeing. Something was happening deep below. He tried to tell them about the black liquid, the silence, the headaches. But no one listened. That night he sat by the shore and watched the horizon. He thought about his father, about the sea that had fed them for generations. He thought about the old stories, that the ocean remembers, that it punishes those who disturb its balance. Then, in the distance, he saw a red flash beneath the waves, and the world began to shake. The quake hit harder than anything the coast had ever felt. Buildings crumbled. Boats snapped from their moorings. The sea pulled back suddenly, exposing the sea floor, slick and gleaming. Rayhan ran to the edge, calling out to his neighbors, warning them to run. But the roar drowned everything. A wall of water rose on the horizon, higher than the trees, higher than the hills, and in that wall, just before it broke, he saw them, hundreds of oarfish, twisting like silver ribbons, carried upward by the force of something vast and unseen. The tsunami hit. Water swallowed the village, the boats, the dock, everything. Days later, when the rescue teams arrived, they found the coastline unrecognizable. The beach was littered with fish, seaweed, fragments of homes, and dozens of oarfish tangled together. Their red fins draped like banners of warning. They found Rehan's boat half buried in sand, its deck blackened, warped, and split. No one ever found Rehan's body, but a week later, a diver exploring the deep trench near Balabac reported something strange, a faint humming sound from the darkness, and streaks of black fluid rising from the abyss. When he surfaced, he said he saw a shadow move beneath him, long, sinuous, and alive. They say the sea gives, and the sea takes. But sometimes it warns. The oarfish are not monsters. They are messengers. When they rise, the world below is shifting. The earth groans. The deep remembers. And somewhere, far beneath the calm blue surface, something vast and ancient is still stirring, waiting for the next time humanity dares to forget what lies in the depths. The end.